Kind of wanted to show you where we left things off yesterday, is that we want to continue the irrigation lines to a planter bed that is over there. And so in order to do that, we're going to remove this existing elbow on this 3/4 inch PVC line. And that's what I went to the store yesterday and purchased. We've got a 3/4 inch T that we're going to put here. And then I purchased as well a new riser, because that one actually kind of broke in the process of us removing the cinder block. So it's going to sit there like that. And then on this side, we're going to put in a short little piece of PVC, also known as a nipple. And then we're going to use a PVC to PEX adapter. And then we're going to continue the irrigation line with PEX instead of PVC. I'll explain some more about that later, so why we chose to go with PEX in this circumstance. And the PEX line is actually going to run below the cinder block and then enter into this trench and then continue through that trench over here to the new planter box. So let me go to the table and I'm going to draw it up for you and show you what we have in mind. I wanted to take a moment to kind of draw out what I was explaining over there. So we currently have a PVC line that's coming in like this, and we've got an elbow, but I'm going to replace that with a T, just like that, and it's going to have a riser on it that connects to the existing irrigation line that feeds off to the Star Jasmine. But right here, after I put in a little nipple, then I'm going to put in what's called a PEX to PVC adapter. And so it's going to glue right there onto that PVC nipple, but it's going to have a little PEX joint on the end that we can crimp to, or we can clamp to, whichever one you prefer. And at that point, since we're running PEX and we've got a cinder block right here in the way, I can use that PEX, because it has such an ability to pretty much twist and wiggle in any shape you want it to be. I can run it down like this below the cinder block into that trench I showed you, and then around into that planter box. One of the things that we're doing with this irrigation project that's a little untraditional and sort of a hack is that with the introduction of the PEX product, seems like a couple of decades ago, I've begun to use it more and more in sort of alternative situations to solve problems that normally I would have solved with PVC or other plumbing materials. In this circumstance though, using the PEX instead of the PVC, the reason I'm choosing it is because PEX seems to me to be nearly indestructible. I think I could probably drive over a piece of PEX with a car and it wouldn't even damage it enough to cause leakage to occur. But PVC, if you hit it with a shovel or a pickaxe, or if you step on it slightly against a rock, you can actually crack the PVC. Also, to make all the different little turns and twists that we need to make in this project, it would require a lot of joints. Every joint is a potential weakness, and it takes time to make those cuts, let the glue dry. Whereas with the PEX, we can make all those turns, no joints, get it all done very quickly. But the only thing I do though is, since it is a reapplication of a plumbing material that's typically used for potable water, and in this circumstance, since we're using it in a non-potable irrigation situation, what I do is I choose the white PVC, the white PEX, instead of the red or the blue, which I reserve just for interior plumbing, so that therefore I can actually color code it. So if you color code your PEX with purple, that is the universal color for non-potable water, whereas blue is for potable. So therefore, at least by coloring all of the length that's going to be underground with a purple permanent marker, then whoever comes along in the future, they might not know the color code system, but they'll probably hopefully look it up on the internet and see that purple means non-potable and realize that it's going to be used for irrigation. And in this circumstance also, it really wouldn't work even for if someone were to accidentally use it for potable, because it's only going to be receiving water pressure intermittently whenever the sprinklers go on anyway. And if I were to use PEX in this situation and run underground to a remote hose bib, in that circumstance, I would actually use the blue PEX, because that way people would know that it is meant to be potable water, and also that it's a cold line. This is the PVC section that I was referring to that we're gonna cut out of here. It's in a pretty muddy area, so I just use a standard spray bottle with water. Actually kind of wash it off a little bit. Unless we get it really nice and clean, we're not gonna get a good bite on those joints. In this section, we will be putting in that slip tee with a threaded vertical on there for the riser. This is the PVC cutter that we're going to use. I'm just going to cut right here at the elbow. All right, just like that. Then we're going to go through and clean this up a little bit. If your cut leaves, like this cut left a little bit of a lip on the other side, you can grab a little piece of sandpaper and kind of cut that back a little bit, sand that down. So here's a sandpaper. Just take off that little rough edge, because otherwise that tee might not make that. And this is what they call emery tape, so it's kind of slick. You can just use it in this manner to clean that off really well. We also use it with copper before we sweat it. You feel that. See how that is? Okay, that's nice and smooth. This side a little more difficult on this side, but smooth that down a little bit. Okay. And whenever I've had PVC that's been sitting in the dirt for a couple decades and I really want to get it clean, I use 100% acetone, because that's pretty much what is in PVC primer. But I find that the acetone actually from a jar is a bit stronger and also cheaper, and so I just use the acetone here until I can get this pipe pretty much down to the same color of white that it was when we bought it decades ago. But this one's pretty well stained with the soil, so I'll just keep working that with the acetone, and then I'll show you what we're going to do for the joint. All right, we finished cleaning the 3/4 inch PVC with the acetone. I think it looks about as good as it's gonna look. And when I feel it, feels like it's pretty much down to the raw PVC. So that's when we follow up with the PVC primer, which does also include acetone. It does clean it off as well. Also, in many parts of the country is a building code requirement, and the inspectors like to be able to see the purple to know that you primed it. And this is the brand new tee, which I mentioned earlier is a slip, threaded, and 3/4 on all diameter on all sides. And then after this dries, then we're gonna use some of the PVC glue, follow the manufacturer's instructions, which for this particular brand you apply it twice, then insert it, give it about a 1/4 turn. So I'm gonna let that dry a little bit longer. this is the plan that we have for the PEX run. We have a PVC to PEX adapter right there, and then it's just gonna run around the bend here, subterranean through the trench, continues up through this planter box, and it's gonna tie into that stub right there, which then allows it to feed the jasmine over here. And then we're gonna put in lines to feed the plants in the planter box here. So we're going to cut the hardy board that we have right here, which is used as a platform for the cinder blocks, so we can just create a small little trench right here to run the PEX down through there. And once we get past this cinder block, then we will probably move into that trench. Hey everybody, I want to spend a little time showing y'all how I'm able to create a PVC to CPVC to PEX adapter, because from my research I wasn't able to find that they actually manufacture a PVC to PEX adapter, so we kind of have to use multiple fittings to get to where we want to get to. So let me show you how it looks on the table. These are the fittings that we're going to use to create our PVC to PEX adapter. The reason everything's colored purple is because CPVC and PEX are typically used, or certainly can be used, in potable water, drinkable water situations. And so therefore, just to make sure that the next person that's digging in the dirt doesn't mistake them for carrying potable water, I went ahead and colored them purple, because purple is the universal color for your non-potable water. And someone finding these buried in the yard somewhere might be a little curious as to why they're finding CPVC and PEX in the yard. So right here we have traditional 3/4 inch PVC, and this is a PVC to CPVC adapter that I was able to find, and this is the 3/4 inch version of a CPVC. And as you can see, they both are indicated as being 3/4 inch. You can actually see that written on both of them, 3/4 inch, 3/4 inch. But you can also clearly see that the diameter is different, and that's just so people can make the distinction between the two. And it is also slightly colored. I would almost say it's an eggnog colored. And then our CPVC, I was able to find a CPVC to PEX adapter, so it slides on there like that. So that allows us to connect to our PEX. And this adapter is going to allow us to connect to our PVC. And so that's one way to create a PEX to PVC adapter, just like that. This is where we're going to be installing our PVC to CPVC to PEX adapter, and we're kind of trying to sneak in this PEX line down through this area. So right now we have some of this concrete that we're going to need to knock out of the way with a mallet and a cold chisel, and then also the section of this cinder block. I'm going to use an angle grinder to probably remove about this section of the cinder block, and then I'm thinking on this cinder block as well, so it kind of has a channel that it can slide through. So let's start working on that with the cold chisel, and then I'll grab the angle grinder and go after those cinder blocks. We've used the angle grinder to cut away the portion of the center block on both sides that we need to allow ourselves a tunnel per se for the pecs. I will go ahead, and since concrete can be rather abrasive, I will go ahead and wrap the pecs with some pipe wrap before we finish everything up. And this is a pretty good location I've got lined up to connect to the PVC. So here you can see we've got our PVC with our PVC to CPVC adapter, and then we have a little CPVC nipple, and then we have a CPVC to PEX adapter right here. So I'm going to go ahead here, cut this section, get that all glued in, and then once that's set, then I'm going to go and crimp the PEX fitting right here. We'll get that wrapped up and start closing this up.